We're talking about serverless computing, what it really means and what you need to know about it. Scott Fulton is joining us here to talk more about this. And Scott, right off the top, when we talk about serverless, are we really taking the servers out of the equation?
Hi, Karen. Good to be with you. And no, it's not really an extraction of the server from the cloud, but what we are doing is trying to change the business model and the application deployment model so that servers aren't so much visible, that you're not really having to tune the server in order to get an application to work in the cloud. The way that cloud computing originally came about, you had to build this whole virtual server model in the cloud, something that looked and worked like a physical machine. And you had to set it up with the operating system and the frameworks and everything that it would need, and then deploy the application into that, and then make that work. And then you were charged, and some people still are being charged, by the server instance, the virtual server instance. This is a very different prospect in which you build an application, deploy it into the cloud, but let Amazon's AWS or Azure or Google Cloud figure out how to put that in a server for you. And then when you use the function in your program in your enterprise, you place a call to it through an API or through an SDK, it gives you the result. And each time you use that function, you pay for that. You pay for the use of the function or the resources that were consumed in the cloud by that function. The idea of that being is this is a much more business-like way approach to being able to use public cloud services than all this techie stuff with setting up instances, setting up containers, setting up orchestrators, and all these layers that are keeping certain enterprises out of the cloud computing market.
All right, and Scott, you mentioned this just a little bit about from a business standpoint, about how much of the public cloud market is actually devoted to this.
Well, I'm looking at my figures here that compiled from market statistics. There's a organization, Markets and Markets, which does market projections for the public cloud. Markets and Markets is projecting that the serverless computing side of the public cloud industry will comprise just under $15 billion of revenue worldwide by 2023. They're saying it's an annual compound growth rate of about 28.6%. And those figures are verified, compounded from other sources. Now, to give you an idea of what that is, as a slice of the overall public cloud market, well, it's about 2 to 2.5% of the overall revenue from public cloud. So you think, well, that's a pretty small thing. But what we're actually trying to build here with serverless is an entry point, a gateway for enterprises to be able to come into the public cloud and use all the other services that a public cloud offers, artificial intelligence, big data, all of these things by way of this serverless gateway. So it's really kind of the front door to cloud computing. And you could say how much a percentage of the house is your front door, maybe about 2.5%. But you're not going to come in through it crashing through the window. I mean, people are tired of crashing through the window. They want a more applicable way of entering the public cloud. So this is going to be, in effect, the front door, maybe one of the most important parts of the entire public cloud.
All right, good way to describe it there. And when you talk about, I guess, the pros and cons, Scott, what do you see as some of the biggest ones there?
The biggest pro from a business perspective is to give the operations department a way to cost manage the functions that they use. When businesses are moving into artificial intelligence for purposes like image analysis or fraud analysis, in order to project the costs involved in that, they've had to think, well, how many virtual servers do we have to stand up? 16, 32? It's hard to know. And sometimes they say, well, let's pick the largest affordable number that we can afford. And let's start with 32 and see if we can start a storage bucket that's huge enough to be able to store all the data. So they over apportion for the service that they're going to use. Well, under the new system, what they would be able to do is rationalize how many times are we going to call this function. And that's something that you can put on paper and build a cost model around to make it much more affordable for enterprise. Now, cons have to do with the state of the evolution of applications. Most enterprises today still don't really have their own in-house developers. And when you look at organizations that are trying to build more modern public cloud services or ways to address their customers from the public cloud, there are a number of options that they can use that are from open source or that are existing plugins that they can deploy, and then the turnkey systems that they can start and run, but they're not really customized to their business. So in the end, they're going to have to hire developers. Now, you've heard probably about a skills shortage throughout all of IT, and software development is one of those. It's where there's this huge demand for new ways, for people who understand the new ways of programming, but there are a few people who are certified or have enough experience in it. Sometimes you want 5 years experience. You're not going to have 5 years experience because some of these new concepts are only 6 months old. I'm being truthful here. They're not even a year old yet. So getting people who are experienced enough to be able to put a public ready system available for consumption today, using a system that's still kind of under construction while it's being flown, that's the real challenge right there. And that challenge, having that challenge, costs money for enterprises. The longer that challenge exists, the more money that's going to rack up in second attempts, third attempts, fourth attempts, things like that.
There's a lot for us to learn here, Scott. A lot of room for growth, of course, in this arena. So we really appreciate your insight on this for us.
Good to be with you, Karen, as always. Hope to see you again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. And for more on Scott's full article on serverless computing and what you need to know, stay with ZDNet.